Hi there. It's awesome to see so many familiar faces actually in this room. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tara Phillips. I'm solutions architect for the Create service line at Keywords. Um, Create covers both art and game dev studios. We have 23 studios across the globe that service specifically game dev and art. And my job is really just to work with all you wonderful people to find the best solutions, the best studios to sort of fit your specific needs. That's what I do at Keywords.
Fantastic. Let's move on with Sviat.
One. Hi, I'm Sviat from Roommate Group. Roommate Group is almost 2,000 people, game development, art production, trailer, and QA company. My areas, I've been running Roommate from the day one, but now my areas uh, responsibility is more strategy, maintaining vision, mission, and culture. And hi everybody, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Sviat. And then we have Thiago.
Hello. Hey. Well, good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Thiago. I'm CEO at Cuckoo. We're the largest co-development and full cycle development company in Brazil. We are one of the few in Latin America that is capable of working with AAA titles, and I have been running the company since day one. Yeah. So I'm the founder, and yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you very much. I can't really see with the lights. Is Guillaume here? Yes? Yes. Okay, good. Guillaume, please.
Hello. My name is Guillaume. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at GlassEgg. So we are the largest outsourcing studio based in Vietnam, the oldest in the industry right now, established in 1995. And last year we've been acquired by Virtuos, so we became GlassEgg a Virtuos studio. So now part of the Virtuos family. That's 3,700 people now. Very happy to be here. Good to see you all.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And yeah, we all barely made it thanks to difficult traffic this morning. Let's start with the first question. So when I'm now working at a game developer and I'm thinking about, okay, what is ultimately the success of the company is, of course, it's shipping a successful game and operating a successful game at some point. But during development, it's incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, to know where you actually are and if the game is successful. If you're halfway through, do you really know if you're actually halfway through? Do you know if the game is successful? It's very difficult. There are many attempts to measure it, but I think it's the holy grail if someone would figure that out. And probably most game developers would happily spend double the budget if that would guarantee a success. Now, as a service company, you're necessarily not 3, 4, 5 years away from your big next milestone in the development of the company. Maybe you can explain a little bit, how would you define success? How do you look at it on an everyday basis? How would you break that down? Maybe let's start with Guillaume.
Sure. I think at GlassEgg, our definition of success and how we measure it greatly evolved throughout the year, based on where your company is at. If you're just starting up, or if you're an established company, if you're looking at growth, if you're looking at expansion. So the success is going to be differently measured over time. But I think the number one fundamental aspect is how much cash in the bank do I have? And how many months can I survive? Can I survive the next 2008 crisis or 2023 maybe? So financial stability for one, pipeline and projects for two, and capacity to grow. Because ultimately, as a service provider, you're scaling revenue as you scale your size. There is not many other leverage, at least limited.
Thanks. Thiago, you want to add?
Yeah, I think that is to see the smile on your guys' faces when we deliver a project. This is the no. Actually, the success for us is much more. It took a while, right? So yeah, no worries. Actually, there is something that we always say at Google, that every time that we face a new problem because of growth is when actually we are seeing that we are succeeding. So what you're saying right now, for example, when you're growing and the new challenges that we're facing now, with the end of the pandemic era, this is these new challenges because you need to keep growing even though there is a new kind of environment out there that is no longer the only remote kind of workers that allow us to hire everywhere. So this is a new challenge for us, and this is one of the things that we have been seeing as something that is telling us what is the success for the company. That because now we're facing new challenges on how to grow, and yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Sounds good. Sviat?
Yeah. So I actually do agree that on different stages of company development, success has a very different definition. And I would love to say that success has many faces because like for our partners, that one thing and for different partners, they do have different definition of success. Sometimes they just need us to deliver the assets on time and they believe that that's already a success. So sometimes they think that that's just a transactional relationships and they want to have a strategic relationships, and that's the definition of a success. For us, success is actually being able to deliver on our mission. Our mission is like quite simple: great games created together, and we want to be a foundation for our partners' creative and production needs. So as soon as we can deliver on that, we think that that's a success. From operational standpoint of view of that, how do we measure that? Maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, we would say that we really look on growth rate, and growth rate is really important, and but not really, because I think that growth rate, that's the result of something. So now we are much more oriented on customer satisfaction, on talent satisfaction, and quality. Because as soon as you have those three components, and as soon as the dynamic in the change is positive, which is very important, then everything else I think is coming. That's our take on that.
I'm just gonna agree with everything that's already been said. I think for keywords, because we're a publicly traded company, there's also the side of the investors and making sure that, all of the studios are meeting their targets and so on from that perspective. So there is certainly that. And then the other thing, you very briefly touched on it, but talent retention. So having projects that our teams are really happy to be working on, that are helping to develop them, where, as everyone else has been experiencing these challenges, talent retention is super important. Obviously, they're the people that are doing the work. So it's important for us to make sure that we have projects for those teams that are resonating and people are proud to be on.
Good, thanks. So I hear a little bit about financial stability. As a CFO, that makes me happy. But also about the mutual success, right? So if you have happy clients, then they will come back, and that ultimately builds a strong company over time. Now, maybe if you have some good examples, let's talk a bit about price, because that's a big part of the financial stability, price and planning. Now, I remember being on the vendor side, how incredibly frustrating it can be when a project delays by 2 or 3 months, because this is for a game development project, it's almost insignificant, but this really can eat into your cash flow, into the stability of your company, especially when you're smaller. Now we all have here relatively big companies. but then there's of course also a lot of behavior where the game developers can be helpful, and then when in times of need you can return the favor. So I think at Sharkmob we always think that, well, let's try to be on the top client list with the people that we work. So in case we need some help, they will actually go a little bit out of the usual way and make things happen for us. And having that option is, I think, introducing, or is going the opposite way, where you push too much down on rates, where you're being too difficult. Yeah, there's a financial side to it, but if you're saving 5% on $1 million engagement, that's $50,000 for a normal AAA production. That's insignificant, but in return, you might introduce a risk that you don't get that extra help, and you might not get the best talent. Maybe do you agree with this? How do you look at this? Or maybe you have some examples where your clients or customers have been helpful and in improving the relationship and thereby growing the company. Maybe Siad.
Oh yeah, I can start with that. I think that there are like two sides. One, like first about price, and we usually by default do not negotiate about price because we just think that that's a wrong angle of negotiation. We really are trying to understand what value we bring like to the table, what need have our client or potential client and partner. And as soon as there is a dialogue, like there is like it's not all about price. There is estimation, there is some contractual terms that can actually really affect price. You can have high price, but you can have a long wait for the briefs or for the feedbacks, or you can have lower price, but for example, partner will cover the idle time. And that's simple examples. Like some contracts are quite complex, but like in the end of the day, if you really like engaged with your partner and spend time and invest in uh, trying to find the way how to cooperate, like in 95%, I think we can kind of find a solution that works for both sides. So, and second part, to some extent, I think that roommate group exists today because partners really and clients saved us and help us, because now roommate is quite international, and the majority of our talent is outside of Ukraine, but Ukraine is like proudly but roommate is proudly originated in Ukraine company. And when the war started, we had 90% of people in Ukraine. So and that's a separate topic. That's like an absolute disaster. However, I think that we even didn't approach our partners to ask them to help us, because you just help us. Like we didn't spend minutes to asking for help. Like we just received and that's how it worked with our people. We just said to them, I probably shouldn't say that, but we said to them, let's be focused on your life, let's save you, and don't worry about deliverables. It's quite scary to say, because as any service business, you like have 2 months of run rate. So, and if you don't deliver for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, so actually you probably don't have a possibility to pay salaries. So in February 2022, I would say we were absolutely scared, but because I think that some of our relationships are quite good, and partners were very forthcoming from just covering even the idle time. I wouldn't really expect that. So that was absolutely amazing without us asking. That give us possibility to be focused on people. And in March, I think we delivered like 85% of our projects, which insane. Like I even don't believe in that, but that's the facts. So that's the biggest example in our life, I would say, in roommate life. So, and thanks everybody for supporting us. That's truly amazing.
That's great. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's incredible, both the challenge and how the resilient the Ukrainian industry has proven to be. Guillaume, I can imagine you have been pioneers in Vietnam, that there were probably a lot of moments that made Glassegg jump in development, or big milestones, or yeah.
Yeah, indeed, it was a long and painful process, but it's getting a lot better. If we go back to the topic of prices, it was a big topic of discussion for many years, and I think the smaller you are and the earlier you are in the start of your company, the more pressure you get from clients on prices. Um, Geographic location also does have an impact. Uh, we're obviously not going to name anyone, but I've received comments like, "Because you are in Vietnam, you should be cheaper than that," and that's a wow moment. It's like, wow, really, and so we need to explain that prices, as you have explained very rightfully. Let's look at the value you bring to your project instead of looking at how much it costs you. How much are we going to make you save? How much are we going to deliver to your project? What's the margin you're going to make out of your project in order to, will you be able to ship your game if we are not here? Just start simple. Um, and then from that, what quality benchmark, scalability, timeline, because it's one thing. Oh, another thing we hear a lot is, "Oh, we can do that in-house much faster." So great. Can you have 200 people do it in the same time? Because scalability is also a very important factor, and there is a cost associated to that. There's overhead in order to manage all of that. So prices is becoming less of a debate, and it's a great thing. I think people starting to understand, a lot more people understanding value as opposed to cost, and I think we are on the right track now.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you when you mentioned that. For example, we are from Brazil, and I don't know why, but some people really think it's. Of course, no one that it's that goes to XDS has this kind of conversations with us. Let me just clear that out. But from time to time, we have been approached by some companies that says, "Hey, you guys are charging the same as a U.S. company. I don't think that you guys are going to use that kind of money. Like, are you guys greedy or something like this?" And no, and in fact, we're not a sweatshop. We're not ever going to be a sweatshop in our lives. We want to treat for example, we were talking about your mission. Our mission there, is to empower and to train and to empower people to deliver the best products. That's it. So our mission is first based on people, and it's focused on people. And never going to pay them very low wages, only because we want to satisfy someone that thinks that because we are in South America, we don't have actually to be paid as a US company, for example. What is most important is the quality that you're delivering, the communication, and also the problem solving that your company can be for the projects, because it's not only that you're going to be executing the projects, but mostly because your price is also because of the problems that you can solve for others, in terms of scalability or new pipeline, or improvement on pipeline as well, innovation on pipeline. This is something that we also add quite a lot, so this is very important. And but of course, when we can understand when some key important clients for us, they have some budget restraints, so we need a constraint. So from time to time, what we do is that, of course, since we do have a very well defined rate that is not, we didn't actually slap in the other day said, "Hey, let's charge this for a May month," for example. So our rate is very well blended with the idle time, the time that we are going to spend for each of the projects, and also even the risks for each project is also inserted in this rate, the calculation for the rate. So from time to time, if we're talking with a really key client and they are they are on budget, they can't spend much more than this, then we can consider if it's a win-win situation, because sometimes, exactly what you said, we're going to help them to deliver, we're going to deliver that. And if it's even more like a major project that it's going to also be a milestone for the video games industry, it's also very important for us to have our names on the credits as well, because that also it's another stamp of quality for our company. So this is something that it's that we when we are doing this, and of course, since we know what we are doing in terms of rates and in terms of pricing, we can simply use our own cash flow to support that as well. So it's just like what Zviat said. It's we don't like to be considered as some sort of external development company. We like to be considered as a strategic partner, that actually people can come to us and they're going to find on us people trying to solve their problems and not only executing outsourcing projects.
Good, thanks. And Tara, since you're focusing a lot on solutions, you need solutions when there are problems, right? So now a little bit the other side of the coin. What do you do, or do you do anything about that to prevent that you might engage bad business relations, or how do you handle that? Do you have some warning signs? What is behavior that's maybe not so helpful?
Yeah, well, there's lots of things. I think that really the most encouraging shift that I've seen in the last few years has been in opening up more information to service providers and external development. Um, the more that we have the chance to see what you guys' plans are and what your timelines are and what are your challenges, and just having frank conversations about, these are the things we're moving over to Unreal 5, for example, and we've never done that before with this team. Do you have expertise that can help us with that training? We're going to start ramping up in 9 months to a year. That's an awesome conversation. That's a thing that we can work with. What we can't work with is, well, or what is a lot more difficult to work with, is somebody coming to you and saying, we need, super specific rendering engineers last week. And we only need them for 2 months. And we just want 3 of them, and they're just going to be part of our team, and we're just going to run with them. That is a less easy thing for us to work with. So having timelines that you can work towards, that you can partner on, that you can really sit down and understand, what are the things we're helping to solve, and then how can we add value. Um, that is kind of one of the biggest shifts that I'm starting to see more and more, is that people are coming to us earlier, and we have that opportunity to understand, especially, again, with keywords, with all these different studios that have different expertise and different areas of capability, capacity, all those things. We can create sort of more custom solutions that sort of start to really address the specific needs.
Would you say that that's maybe a number one concern, clients coming with extremely short notice, important projects that are just difficult to um, get done, or
Um,
is there other things?
there are other things. Obviously, we talked a lot about price, right? As soon as someone comes in and starts sort of just trying to devalue, and talk things down, or somebody who doesn't necessarily see the value in terms of adding management costs or things like that to your team. So they're like, well, we have, project managers. We don't need your project managers. We just want, the art team, or the, whatever. um, those are those are tricky conversations to have, because it's not how we operate. It's not how you're going to get the best value. um, you know there are reasons why things are set up the way that they are, and it's not to gouge, and it's not to, get all the money out of you or anything like that. It's really set up to be the best, um, the best sort of overall team dynamic for our clients. So anytime that we get people coming in trying to really shift the way that we do business, it's always kind of a tricky conversation. Um, Also, uh, when there's a lot of hesitancy to share any documentation or example assets or things like that, sharing code for code reviews, that makes it very hard for us to do our job as well. We're seeing a lot of more of a shift towards openness and things like that. But it becomes really difficult for us to wrap our heads around a project if we aren't being shared pretty vital information. So those are like the top sort of difficulties, or I would say maybe bottlenecks in terms of just getting a project kicked off and ready to go is like that information, transparency in terms of just this is the way that the team works, and try not to change that too much, and then obviously timelines.
How far into the future do you typically have a solid view of your projects that's secure, and when does it start to get maybe a bit more difficult to plan, or where the commitment's maybe not there? Maybe Thiago, what's the time frame that you have on the
That
horizon?
actually, this is something that we are very careful when we are planning the future of the company. We always try to, we have, this is mandatory for our business team, is to find long-term kind of relationships. And of course, if we are talking about long-term kind of relationships, we are talking about, special discounts, because we can actually remove the idle time from our rates, for example, and that is a win-win situation. So one of the things that we always do is to have at least 30% of our projects being long term. By long term, it's a multi-year kind of project, like at least 2 years of project. And then yeah. So right now, since we are still scaling quite fast, and right now we have a very I don't know, happy kind of projection that we can see that the company is secure for the next 2 to 3 years already. But we know that it's not always for smaller companies, this is not actually how it works. It's very difficult for them to try to predict how long they can stay on business, since they need to pay the bills, and it's very difficult if they don't have a track record of working with major titles, or they don't have the team, like a large team. It's going to be very difficult to try to find some to try to plan something more than 6 months after the day that they are right now.
Yeah. Guillaume, how's it for Glass Egg?
Well, for the very long time, our golden number was 6 months. It's how much can I see after 6 months is pretty much nothing,
Yeah.
or unsure. So if you're set for the next 6 months, you're good. More and more, we are switching toward much longer terms, which is good. It brings stability and peace of mind. We obviously prefer long-term project over smaller terms project. However, there's a lot of small terms projects that turns into long terms, and flexibility is key, right? Not everybody has a project with, hey, I've got $10 million for you, and can you work for me for 2 or 3 years? Now, very often we start small, build trust, build relationships that will evolve naturally into something more long term. So there is a lot of judgment and appreciation in when we pick a project, because there is a hard booking commitment, there is a lot of soft booking, and there is the potential value, and we are trying to ponderate that and see, well, okay, well, that's a great new studio that is developing. There is a lot of opportunity to work with them. They are obviously a very small team. They are in pre-production. They are sometimes even pitching themselves in order to get funds. So can we help them do that? And if they achieve their goals, and we will achieve our goal as well, and then the project will evolve. So it's a very tricky question in terms of visibility. And even if we have a 2 year signed deal, the project can get killed next month. It's not like they're not paying 2 years ahead. There is not a 2 years down payment. So it's good to have a signature on paper, but anything can happen really. So
Yeah, that was probably for me the biggest change, that all of a sudden you don't have this insecurity on cash flow anymore. It's like, oh, we're funded, we're releasing a game in 3 years. Okay, great. Um, uh, Yeah, maybe one last question for Sviat. Of course, the situation in Ukraine is terrible, yet the industry has prevailed and is extremely resilient. Uh, how do you see the next few months or year going ahead for the industry in Ukraine and also for Room 8? What is it that you're currently doing to deal with the war?
That's like, thanks for asking. I think that's a tough question, because like, as a Ukrainian, I truly wish war to be stopped like tomorrow, and I have a lot of feelings. And some of them I can say publicly, and also, but that's like a personally tough question. But realistically, I think that it can be prolonged, for years. So it's really important to look on other country where the wars or conflicts or just instability were like for years, and see how those countries work. Like, we before the war started, we already started our path for the globalization, and like, we have a 5 years plan how to diversify it, how to go for like to many different countries. We always actually use keywords as a role model. We took the presentations and put in our presentations and say, like, look, they're in 23 countries or like 40 countries and so many countries, let's do like that. So, and we started doing that, but it was really kind of, like, we were, I would say, laid back, because everything was so good. We have been growing for on average 60% year to year, just organically, without M&A. So when the war started, and it changed everything. So now we have different instruments how to work with that. We are hiring outside, but we continue to hire inside the Ukraine. The performance in Ukraine, I think, is great. Like, sometimes there are some moments, but overall, what I can see, like 96, 97% of our clients are happy. But for Ukrainian company, I, like, because that's very unpredictable, I think that like all other companies should really diversify, should go to other countries, and I think there's a lot of benefits in that. Like, I truly believe that company just became much stronger. Like, we have a lot of people in Poland, in Spain, in Brazil. We acquired actually a company that was our second M&A, and like we're in 23 countries actually right now, but not with a big. So I think that by default we should assume that it's going to be long, but and we should operate in those circumstances, and like any Ukrainian company. But I'm in contact with other Ukrainian outsourcers, and I think that everybody are doing reasonably good. Like, we grew, and that's I know, like, there is no sense in that to some extent unless you know how we did it. But when the war started, we were 900 people, I think. So now we're almost 2,000. So in war, we grew 2 times. So I think it shows that the opportunity is there and possibility is there. And as soon as you continue to deliver quality, as soon as you are in a direct conversation with your clients, I think everything is going to be good. But it's work. So that's.
Thank you.